Restorative justice is about putting a victim and offender together in a room, in a safe environment where we can address the issues and effects caused by an offence and hopefully help both parties be able to move on after an offence has been committed.
Restorative justice is communication between victim and offender with the overall aim for the victim to get any unanswered questions from the offender and also to reduce reoffending.
Restorative justice is a process that allows victims to communicate with offenders. It gives them a chance to answer questions that are specific to them. It gives them a chance to explain the impact of the crime. It gives them a chance just to meet the person responsible and find out why they did what they did.
Well, the thing about restorative justice is that it brings victims and offenders together in some sense, maybe at a distance or face to face, hopefully face to face, because I think those sorts of encounters are probably the best. I think for the victims, it's a way of helping them in the getting over a crime by sometimes it's answering difficult questions that go through their minds about why they've been singled out for that crime. For the offender, I think in the case of those people who want to change their behaviour, the things that they've done wrong, they see the impact that it's had on a victim, and that can take them along that journey of becoming a changed person.
A direct restorative justice intervention is where the victim and the offender actually come together and meet each other face to face in a safe environment which is facilitated by one of our practitioners. An indirect restorative justice intervention is whereby the communication between the victim and offender is done either through a letter or through a third-party communication.
Restorative justice is essentially about enabling communication between two people after an offence has happened. It's giving victims an opportunity to explain the impact of the offence and potentially ask questions to the one person that can really only answer those questions, and an opportunity for offenders to explain their actions and maybe what led up to it for them, potentially to offer an apology and some way of making amends.
As far as we're concerned, restorative justice here in South Yorkshire is an entirely voluntary process, both from the point of the victim and of the offender. And as a consequence, then there is no offer or incentive also that service is offered to them. They take part voluntarily, but it will not impact on whether or not an offender is given a different sentence than they would otherwise receive.
One of the common misconceptions about restorative justice is that it's an alternative to traditional forms of justice. The majority of our work takes place after somebody has been caught, arrested and sentenced for the crime. So we might be working with them in the community or in prisons, but there will be an admission of guilt at some point for us to be able to work with that offender.
Well, as far as we're concerned, in South Yorkshire, a victim can request or access restorative justice for any offence type, and they can make that request at any time on their journey through the system. And what we have seen is evidence that some of the most serious cases have been some of those victims who've really benefited from the service. And you might find that quite surprising, but again, it's the impact that the crime has had on those individuals and how they get over it. So whether it's been for a very serious case such as a homicide case or a death by dangerous driving, we have seen those victims, we've spoken to those victims, and we know that they've benefited from it personally. It's really helped them cope and recover.
Restorative justice can and is used across all crime types. It can be used from low-level offending behaviour such as shop thefts all the way through to offences involving death. For those types of cases, what we class as sensitive and complex and more high tariff, we would look to assign practitioners with the necessary experience and training to take on those type of cases. Remedy placed a lot of stock in how we prepare for a restorative justice intervention. That for us is where the real work takes place, preparing the victim and preparing the offender to make sure the actual meeting is safe.
In South Yorkshire, we have a team of fully trained restorative justice practitioners who will make contact with you, do a restorative justice assessment and help you explore the options available to you.
Hi, I'm Beth Maguire and I'm a restorative justice practitioner for Remedy that works at HMP Doncaster. My role is to do initial assessments with offenders, to see if they're appropriate to take part in RJ. I also facilitate the Restorative Choices programme, getting them to think more restoratively about their choices and to avoid reoffending.
My name is Mark Winrow. I'm a restorative justice practitioner working in the South Yorkshire area adult arena. So my role is after the referrals being received from the police, I then make contact with victims who are the people who have been harmed and introduce the idea of restorative justice to them. Depending on their needs, their assessment, we would then look to have a restorative intervention meeting or some kind of indirect meeting with the offender, thus giving them some kind of closure on the crime that's been perpetrated against them.
Well, as far as we're concerned, in South Yorkshire, we believe that we've got the evidence to show that it does work. We're very fortunate in that we've got the universities locally who are specialists in restorative justice, and they've been able to provide that academic rigour to show that for reducing reoffending it works. As far as victims are concerned, then we know that in South Yorkshire that the Police and Crime Commissioner arranged for an independent evaluation of victims who have accessed restorative justice in quite recently. And from that we found that more than 80% of those victims who accessed the service were satisfied or very satisfied.
Not only do I get to oversee a lot of the work we do, but I'm also involved in some of the cases, and when you actually see this work being delivered, it's hard to describe how impactful it can actually be. Our strapline is empowering people, changing lives, and when you actually see restorative justice work and when we deliver it well, then it does just do that.
Well, I used to be sceptical, now I'm a believer, and I became a believer when I met a woman, a young woman, a single mum, who'd had her car stolen, trashed by a young man, and she was perplexed by all sorts of questions. Why did he pick on me? Why was I singled out, and so on? And that was a way in which she found some help for those sorts of questions.
What impact I've seen on people? I think one of the most important ones for me was I took a gentleman to meet a burglar in prison. He actually said, I don't need to do this, I'm over it, but I'll do it for him. I want to let him say what he has to say. So when we come out of the prison, I said, well, you've been through the process now. You told me initially that you were over it. How do you feel now? He said, let me stop you there. I thought I was over it. I am now. To me, that made a difference. He didn't realise just how beneficial it was for him to go through this process. And it's made a huge difference to his life, even though he thought he was over it.
It's fantastic to see people get actual outcomes that they want. So sometimes certain things keeping someone awake at night, this is a chance to address that specific need and get answers that no one else can give them other than the person responsible for the offence committed against them.
Working with offenders every day, it's so rewarding listening to how they want to change their behaviour, and also through direct meetings, facilitating that meeting between victim and offender and getting all the unanswered questions answered. It's just a really rewarding experience.
Why would a victim of crime want to take part in restorative justice? Well, an offence can leave a lot of unanswered questions, and often the person best placed to answer those questions is the offender themselves. It gives victims a chance for closure. It gives them a chance to express the true impact the offence has actually had on them and their families to the person who is responsible. That can be a massively empowering thing to do.
I think for the victims, it's a way of helping them in the getting over a crime by sometimes it's answering difficult questions that go through their minds about why they've been singled out for that crime. For the offender, I think in the case of those people who want to change their behaviour, the things that they've done wrong, they see the impact that it's had on a victim, and that can take them along that journey of becoming a different, a changed person.
The reason why an offender might be motivated to take part in restorative justice is that if they are feeling remorse and they feel sorry for what they've done, the best person they can express that to is the direct victim. So it gives them an opportunity to explain some of the reasons why they committed the offence and also how they feel now. That can be a big motivatory factor for why an offender would want to be involved in restorative justice.
I'd highly recommend it, and from what I've experienced and the insight I'd gained, I'd recommend it to anyone, no matter how serious the crime was or how deep the emotional turmoil is. I think you could get something out of it. I can't really think of any negative. I didn't even have to drive anywhere, didn't even have to spend a penny, you know, it was great. because I think it's forgiveness, isn't it, which is one of the most beautiful capacities of people, to be able to forgive someone for what they've done. In the end, there's really no point holding that hatred and a grudge towards someone in your heart, because it's only going to affect you more. If you can come to terms with it and forgive them, this process will help you do it. You know, it'll be a piece of the puzzle and helping you to do it anyway. I'm not going to say it'll give you all the, you know, you'll feel great afterwards, but it might help you in your recovery from what you've experienced, and that's why I'd highly recommend it. Yeah.
If you've been a victim of crime in South Yorkshire, you can get more information by accessing the PCC's website or Remedy's website. There are contact details on there so that you can have a conversation with someone about a restorative justice assessment.